Hi everybody, Bobby Ogilvy, project manager and professional coach. Today's question: if I'm smart, if I'm high IQ, do I still need a coach? Do I still need a professional coach? The answer, yes. In fact, you might actually need it more. If you think of one of the value adds of a coach is that they're helping you cultivate your self-awareness. High IQ can actually make you very blind to your gap areas, very blind to your schemas. Um, One of the gifts of things like meditation or mindfulness practice is there's slowly a self-awareness component, um, and it can start to make you more aware of your own ways of thinking and processes. Um, People that can be high IQ but have very low self-awareness, very low EQ typically, um, it's like they're not very aware of the impact or the focus of their ideas. A lot of times it can feel like their motivation is really not within their control or something they can work with, and so the reaction sometimes they might go from being kind of flat or disinterested to really kind of reactive into something, and it might feel for them like it's just some automated response, like they don't have control over it, but that's wrong. It's about patterns and reactions, right? Um, just in general, I would say that, and this is actually classical for many, many startups. So a good startup starts with good technical innovation, right? So good applied science or engineering or programming or some kind of niche applied technique. And that took good depth of knowledge. It took a person, it took a few good people, which are really experts in that field. In fact, some of the best tech startups here in New Brunswick, they were offshoots or spin-offs of grad research, right? And sometimes with a few people working on something, and then at some point someone said, "Hey, we can solve a bunch of other problems with this thing," right? And they make a business out of it. So good, right? So it starts with this high technical knowledge, but then if you're thinking of growing a startup organization around that, well, you need to at some point not just start to sell, but get good at selling, right? You need to have this business organization. It's not just about engineering, developing some new product. You have to make a business, and then particularly as your business scales and as you have more people and more operations to deal with, there's this whole leadership question about cultivating others and what culture do you set, and particularly if you can't have direct contact with everyone, how are you setting the tone, and what areas do you need to be focusing on your organization to help it grow and move forward, right? So it's these other two areas. It's this kind of business management and organizational leadership, which tend to be the gap areas of the technical people, right? And that should be pretty obvious, right? The people that are the crack analysts, the expert engineers, the nerdy, insightful programmers. They're not the sort of people you want, running a sales team or training people or directing business strategy or figuring out when you need to pivot or change, right? These are different skill sets, and so these are I find the biggest areas that people need to work on as part of their coaching. They're strong in one area. They have some clear strength, but there's other areas they need to cultivate. In that sense, I still very much believe in people's people potential. So the way we tend to address competencies now, it's not that someone is fixed to say they do or don't have certain traits, but if you think of competencies about as a kind of rate of return, rate of development of certain areas, right? It's just going to be there's some areas your natural aptitude, you're going to pick up quickly, you can adapt quickly. Some areas almost have a lower rate of return, right? It's going to take you more time, more effort to develop those skills, but they're still totally developable. In that sense, too, your go-to skills, which you develop the natural aptitudes for, are so much also a part of your own identity and kind of meaning-making ways of approaching the world that they seem kind of sensible, typical, and normal to you, right? And versus when you're out of your comfort zone, beyond saying it's just difficult, it can be a little bit more bewildering, and you don't really identify with them as much. And so you're going to have more of these kind of moments which feel like kind of like a crisis of faith, or like almost this identity confusion. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. Or that, like, should I be doing this? This is nuts, right? So, the engineer, which is trying to now become this like technical salesperson, yeah, that could be a big shift for them. And that takes a lot of practice and effort to not just develop those skills, but like kind of normalize the fact of like, yeah, you can sell. That's a trainable skill. You can work with others. And there's probably internal awareness components about that shift in attitude and using those skills in a different way that they kind of need to come to grips with. I guess the biggest thing in that self-awareness piece is realizing just because you're strong in one area does not mean you're good at others. And it's also very typical that someone that is strong in some area, out of their own, I mean, now we're getting into kind of ego and narcissism stuff. They think, oh, well, I must be high in all these other areas. No, you're not. I've seen that time and time again. One of the big reasons why leadership is so important is that as a manager and as a leader in a single team, multi-team environment, you start to come in contact with more people. So if you think of it as not just your strength, but particularly your gaps, your flaws in any sense, become amplified. So if you don't start early on working on those, I'm not just talking about skill gaps, but like interpersonal, emotional, any kind of maybe reliability kind of stuff. If you don't start working on these early, your flaws are just going to scale up and keep being amplified over more and more people that you come into contact with. And before you know it, something which was initially not that big of a problem on an individual level, now that you're dealing with 5 people or 25 people or 2,500 people, is a damn big problem. That's the big reason why you need to be thinking about coaching, about personal development, about how I need to grow as a person and as a leader, so that your shadow doesn't grow too big and your gaps don't take down your whole organization. That's it. All right. I'm Bobby Ogilvy, project manager and professional coach.